We're live.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, cool. Oh, I gotta mute myself here. Want to just show Bethany what that looks like real quick?
If I can turn this.
Can you?
We'll see.
Okay. So that's what the wide looks like.
This is what the wide looks like. Ready?
Fantastic.
And then
this is your
and
camera.
then there's the Bethany cam. Yeah.
Move it over a little?
We can go like this also.
Boom.
Guys,
Great.
you're so dialed in.
And
And
that's
then the
Sam
me cam. Oof, sharp, razor sharp.
Razor.
Love it.
sharp.
Okay, you can move that back.
All right.
Hi. Everyone say hi to Bethany.
everybody.
It's not every day that we get the CEO of Humane on the stream.
Or donuts.
Well, they're not donuts, they're munchkins.
Munchkins, sorry.
Yeah, there
Sorry.
is a difference here. Hello, Emilis, Esteban, Max, Jason, Suhant, Becca, Nick, Lakshman, Kyle, Luther. A lot of familiar faces in here. Look, people are saying hi.
Hi, everyone.
People are saying hi. Yeah, it's about 9:08 a.m. in New York City.
It's like 6 a.m. my time.
That's right.
This is why I have a bucket of coffee.
A bucket of coffee
Literally
this morning.
a bucket.
Bethany,
And-
what is it about Dunkin Donuts that speaks to you?
How long do we have?
We have about an hour. Just bring this close to your face.
Yeah, bring it closer.
Hi,
Okay.
Andy.
Oh my God, Andy's here. I went to college in New York City, and I grew up in New Jersey, and it's like my dad. It's a thing my dad and I do together. You know, go to Dunkin Donuts. He loves coffee. I love coffee.
So is it a product of your environment?
Yeah, and it's sad because in California we don't have them. I mean, in San Francisco they don't have them. So
Don't they exist in LA now?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but like in California, in San Francisco, there's one, and it's by the airport, and it's terrible. It's not even the real thing. Don't even bother going. And so yesterday, when I went there for the first time, coming back to New York after a long time, I haven't been here in a while. And I went to the Dunkin' Donuts, and I was taking a selfie with my coffee, and the woman who worked there came running over and said, like, "Can I get in your photo with you?" I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
We took a selfie together. It was a magical moment. I feel back home. I'm at peace.
So is it?
And so I brought munchkins for us all to share.
Thank you. Now these are munchkins, not donut holes, right?
What's the difference?
It's just what's in the name.
Yeah.
You know?
These,
They're munchkins.
They're munchkins. And I brought you an assorted gift.
Oh my God,
Sam,
thank
for
you.
and Colin.
Oh my God, thank
Awesome.
you. Yep, time
I
to munch
mean-
on some munchkins. Here, take a munchkin.
Listen,
Thank you.
This is my happy place, and I know it's a vice, and I have no qualms about it. It's my thing. I
Is
love
it the consistency of it? You know what you're gonna get every time. It's like Domino's pizza.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. And there's like everything about just the flavor, the cup, the ice. I mean, people who love Dunkin' know that it's an experience.
Now I have to ask Bethany. Starbucks. Where does this?
I mean, I love coffee of all kinds.
Sure.
You know that. I definitely, it's the one thing I love multiple times a day. But I would put Dunkin' over Starbucks, you know. I exist on Starbucks because there's no, Dunkin' in California.
That's why you get Starbucks at the office.
Because
So you would take this 10 out of 10 times over
100%.
Starbucks.
Anytime. Like even over fancy coffee.
Was this the thing you did in high school also?
You know, that's a good question. Yes, actually.
Like when you drove senior year, whenever,
Yeah,
you know?
so I was a figure skater. I don't even know if we've talked
No,
about
we
that.
haven't.
But yeah, I wasn't. So my dad would drive me to the ice skating rink really early in the morning, 5 a.m., and we would stop at Dunkin' because he loves Dunkin' and I love Dunkin'. I think maybe that's where I have like a nostalgic, feeling towards it. And we would stop there and I would get something, 14, 15, 16 on the way to the rink. So maybe that's where it comes from, Sam.
So you started drinking coffee in high school.
I mean, I don't think it was like straight coffee, but it was probably like a coffee culotta. Like, yeah, I think I was definitely having caffeine probably earlier than I should have, but
So you start your day every day with a coffee.
yes.
How do you take your coffee?
Just straight with oat milk. Just
Oat milk. And is that?
Yep.
Bethany, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
That's
I was
great.
just thinking actually when I walked in this morning, like, man, our life's been a little crazy, Sam and Colin. It's been a little wild. So we've been a lot of different places. It's been a little, and it's only going to get crazier, which is really exciting.
I want to sort of zoom out a little bit and just take a moment to, number one, say thank you, Bethany, for the opportunity. I mean, not long ago, I didn't even work here. And now I don't even remember what my life was like beforehand. It's so crazy. And also not too long ago, Colin didn't even work here. It's
it feels
hard.
a lot longer than that.
It does.
To be
It feels
honest.
like it feels very native to me.
It's hard to remember now because I was at Humane for, I think, 4 months, and then we hired Colin. Now it's already been 2 months, and I'm just like, how did I function without Colin at Humane, you know?
Well, I told you this when you joined, and I actually told someone this story last night at the Women in Tech dinner. We had a great Women in Tech dinner last night. It was awesome. Second annual in New York. But I was telling someone about you. Your name came up in conversation, someone who knew you, actually. And it came up in conversation where I was just saying, you know, like, Sam is so pure of heart. Like, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's, like, incredibly passionate. He's incredible. There's a lot of intent in what he does, and you can feel that. It's very authentic. And I said, and when he showed up at Humane, I remember telling you, like, on your first week, I'm like, you've, like, meant to be here all along. Like, it feels like you just fit in. I was like, he was like a puzzle piece that just, like, fit in. I was like, yep, like, we've been working together for a long time. This is, like, how it's supposed to be. I felt the same way about Colin. Colin showed up, and I was like, yep, this is how it is supposed to be. It just felt really, like you said, very natural, and, like, it's been awesome.
What is that?
It's, if you asked Imran, he would tell you, like, all of this is predetermined. Like, this is where
it's a
you're
cosmic
supposed to be.
alignment.
Yeah.
Cosmic alignment. I like that.
I think, I mean, I've said this to you off camera, but when I came to visit in August, like, when I entered the office, some metaphysical, like, I felt it, Bethany. Like, I had put up that video, I was fascinated, enamored by everything Humane, and when I was physically present inside there, I was like, I belong here.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I can explain to you what that feels like. It's like a gut thing. Like, it's literally
definitely a gut thing.
And so now I'm just like, wow, I've been here for 6 months already. It's crazy.
I know, and by the time we launch, like, oh my God,
I know.
It's gonna be amazing.
And I also love to just pause for a moment. I say this to you pretty frequently, Colin, like, these are the good old days. We're going to look back and be like, wow, we were in stealth. Like, the world had no idea what our first product was, you know? And, like, we don't know what's on the other side of this. And it's so exciting.
I know.
It's so
Very
crazy.
exciting. I love it.
And especially for you and the team, Bethany, 4+ years of operating like this. What's it like for you at this point?
It's
you know?
funny that you say that, like, these are the days we're gonna look back on really fondly. And
Just bring this a little bit closer.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, this is a new mic for me. Okay. Keep giving me tips. Okay. So I tell the team, you both know, at our team sync, we have a big team meeting every 2 weeks. The whole company comes together, and it's really special. I love those moments a lot. And you know, I've said many times to the team, like, I know this is a really, really challenging, like, maybe we're in a really difficult part on the hardware or software, wherever we are in the build and the milestones. And I often remind everybody, like, you know, these are the moments that, for people who've been through 0 to 1s before, who've shipped new products before, that we look back on, and, like, with the most kind of nostalgia, and remembering those really hard moments where you're in a room trying to solve a problem, and maybe the power of the team comes together to solve it, or the moments where I tell people, like, you know, I have an idea, I have a crazy idea, this is the solution, you know, and those are some of the best memories I have from my past before Humane. And so, yeah, I think it's pretty fun to just, you know, think about that as we're in this moment leading up to it. It's really easy to just kind of, like, power through and get caught up in the craziness of it all. And so I'm personally working on trying to, like, be more present in the moment. Like, even last night I was telling somebody at the dinner, you know, everything is, I look at the month of April, I'm like, oh my God, how are Imran and I going to do this? It's going to be really intense. How are we all going to do this together? It's going to be really crazy. But I said, in this moment right now, I'm at this dinner, I just want to be present with these people and be really intentional about sharing space with you all and enjoying this time. And connecting on things that have nothing to do with Humane and with work. It was more about, you know, sharing experiences with one another, and it was so special. And so I think I'm definitely personally trying to do more of that than I did in the past.
It's very easy to just look to the future, look ahead, or even look behind. You know, that's like, humans inherently, we're nostalgia creatures. We also look forward to the future, but, and this is going to sound so cliche and silly, but really all we have is the present moment, you know? And for you to be able to ground yourself like that, and, like, put your phone down and just, like, exist here. And it's like, yeah, there's 1,000 things going on. Sure. Yeah. But all we have is this moment, you know?
And the people really matter, I think, is something that we all have recognized at Humane, and we were talking a lot about this last night too, that like the people you surround yourself with, and
it's everything.
And the people you choose to build your life with, and I feel really grateful. I feel like at Humane we have just a lot of incredible people who care deeply about one another, who are willing to like go the extra mile to understand one another. Like, we're all humans existing and having this human experience, but everyone's experience is very different. And I think people at Humane take the extra moment to understand you and what your experience has been, and who you are. And so I don't know, I think I'm really grateful for that. And for the past 4 years, you were asking how it's been. Like, there were moments when we were building really early days, and I would look at Imran some nights and I'd be like, we're moving too slow.
Wow.
You know, or this is not going fast enough. Imran has a joke that like on my tombstone, it's going to say, what's the next step? Because that's like literally it. In my book, when I write it, that's what it's going to be called. It's going to be called What's the Next Step? And that's who I am, right? I'm constantly like, where are we going next? What's the next step? How are we getting there? What's going on? Everybody know what your job is. Like, let's go. And so there were moments where I think I was definitely like, we're not moving fast enough. This is moving too slow. And he was always the one that was saying like, this is all how it's supposed to be. Like, and now here we are, 4 years later, and the timing is right and everything is coming together. And so I think I have a better appreciation for that now in terms of being patient, and that's helped me quite a bit.
In terms of where we are now in the program, Bethany, no spoilers, but how are you feeling these days? It's the last day of March.
Good. I know, I'm feeling really good, which I think
there were a few moments in the last few months.
It was,
a
lot of big moments, and it was a challenging year, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
I think that when you're building a company and a place, it's not just about what's happening inside of the walls. It's also about what's happening outside, and how can you take care of people and navigate them through, a lot of uncertainty. And I feel like at Humane we've had that in spades. Like, we've had to deal with that a lot from the beginning of the company. If you told me like, hey, you're going to build a company in the middle of like a pandemic and like, a lot of unrest and world wars and everything that's been going on, I think, we probably started out a little naive about what it meant to like build a company in a place and take care of people. It's definitely been amazing to see how much we've all grown from it, I think, and realized how important, building that community and taking care of one another has been. I think it's been a really challenging year in a lot of different ways, but I feel that it's been a really transformational year. I think that we've come really far, like a really long way, and I'm feeling really good, which I'm so happy to say. Like, going into April, I feel awesome. I'm personally super excited. I can't wait, and I'm, counting down the days, so that's a good feeling. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, where we are in the program right now, again, without saying much, it's like we're full steam ahead.
Yeah,
it's like we are approaching this point of like, yep, it's happening. This is definitely happening. I want to talk about, Bethany, like this aspect of leadership, and I guess my sort of opening question is like, are people born leaders, or is that a skill that you sort of develop over time? You think it's a personality thing? You think it's a thing that you develop over time as like a skill set?
Well, for one, I think we are forever growing.
Yes, sure.
I think I said this we had like a women's dinner last week in San Francisco, which was awesome. And I talked about how the universe is forever expanding, and how I always think about that when I think about like my personal journey, and like how my state of being, what I want to be, which is, always curious, always willing to learn. And I think I come from a place of like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I genuinely believe that like you are capable of anything, and it's really just a matter of like how hard you want to work and how patient you want to be. But really, like, anyone can do anything. And that is probably the most liberating and the most frustrating thing you'll ever hear, because it just means that you are the only person standing in your way, which is really hard sometimes. So I think it's definitely something that anybody can exhibit. You actually don't have to be in a certain role. You don't have to be given the role of leader. You don't have to be given the title of it. It can come from anybody. And it really, I might have said this last time we spoke, but there's an amazing woman, Roberta Riga. She is an incredible advisor to our network at Humane. And she came and spoke at the women's dinner last week in San Francisco. Her and I had like a fireside chat. And she is someone who taught me that leadership is a state of being. And that was a really big moment for me early on in the building of Humane, where I realized, like leadership isn't necessarily about the words you say or the things you do. It's about how you exist in those moments where things are really challenging, how you show up, how you present, and that it really can come from anyone in the room. It doesn't have to come from the top down. It can be anyone. If you ask my parents, what I was like when I was a kid, my mom will tell you, like, if there was a line, I was at the front of it. Like, I wanted to carry the flag at the front of the line. Like, that was just who I was. But I don't think that is what a leader is. I think that's just, another aspect of my personality that will kind of always be there. But I encourage anybody to think about, what it means to be a leader in any meeting, in any room, in any situation, because it doesn't have to come from certain people. It really can come from anyone.
So what does it mean to be a leader, Bethany?
I genuinely believe that it's the state of being. Yeah, how
Wow.
you show up,
Wow.
If there's like a really challenging, we've all been in them. If there's like really challenging conversations or maybe, passionate debates, like, listen, we're really creative people and we're building something really hard. There's going to be a lot of disagreements. There's going to be a lot of, passionate debates, and that's important. You need to have those discussion and dialogue to create great products. Like, it has to happen. And how you show up in those conversations is what is going to define you as a leader, right?
Now, from an emotional perspective, you just said before, like, it's not about what you say. It's about like how you behave, or the energy you give, like what.
Yeah, I think so. Let's use an example of like having to give someone hard feedback, right? Whether it's about their work or about them and their growth and maybe how they're showing up. It's in some ways, it's not necessarily about the words you say, but in how you say it and how you deliver it, and being really thoughtful about the way that you present it, and in the energy that you create in the room. And sometimes I've actually, and listen, I always tell people, like, we are all human. We are not perfect. I will never be perfect. I will never look at our values, trust, truth, and joy, and like pat myself on the back and be like, I'm an expert. Like, none of us will ever be an expert. We are constantly growing. We are constantly learning. We are all going to fail, many, many times in the future. We have many, many times in the past. It's not about that. It's about how you show up when you do fail, and like, how do you say to somebody, as an example, like, hey, Sam, like, I did a bad job in that interaction with you, but I want you to know I'm recognizing that I didn't do a good job, and I'm working on it. And here's what I recognize as why I didn't show up in a good way. I'd love to hear from you, like, if you have any other feedback for me, but I want you to know I'm going to work on it. And as long as you on the other side can say to me, like, totally get it, and I can move on, or maybe even like, hey, I need a day to like think about it, but I hear you, and we're good, we're okay, I understand, it's okay. Like, both of those examples are people who have shown up as a leader, right? They both have taken this moment that was challenging and hard, and said, like, we're both growing, it's okay, we can move on. Like, that to me is, an example of leadership that, So I think anyone can do that.
When you were in finance, was it any sort of leadership position?
Well, I don't even know if I would call it that I worked in finance.
Okay.
I was at, I went to college, and then I was studying physics and math. And
Here, right?
Well, I went to NYU for 2 years, actually. I lived in the sorority house, like literally 2 blocks away, which is pretty kind of full circle moment, which is amazing. I walked by it on the way here this morning. And then I left NYU and I went to Barnard, which is the women's college at Columbia, and I graduated from there. And I was part of the physics program, and, everybody in my program was, going to get their PhD or, going on to additional education after that. And I just knew that I really just wanted to go into the workforce. I wanted to start working. I was really, excited to make some money and be, I always had this idea of what it meant to go to work. I was excited about that. I was telling someone recently that my grandfather had a desk in his attic, upstairs, and I used to play I used to play at the desk with all the stamps, and I wanted that.
So you were born this way,
I was
Bethany.
born
this
to be that person.
Yeah.
I was all the papers
Wow.
and that was. So I was ready to go to work, and I went to PwC, and I had an internship there the summer before my senior year in their advisory practice. So they have an accounting practice and advisory practice, and I worked in the data management group. And that was because I was studying astrophysics before that and doing astrophysics research. And a lot of astrophysics is just data, and you're analyzing data. And I really liked data. I liked the idea of you have this massive amounts of data and you can find these pieces of information in it. How crazy is that? You can figure out something about something that's so far away that you can't see just by analyzing this data, which was super fascinating. So I went into data management consulting at PwC.
Data management consulting.
Yes.
So you dig through data.
Yeah, or really help clients who have large amounts of data and don't know what to do with it and don't know how to organize it, don't know how to leverage it in the right way, and we would build tools for them sometimes. So I worked at a bank once that had money laundering issues, and they were getting some pressure to build some tools to help with anti-money laundering. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry when they were having a bunch of the big pharmaceutical companies were having a lot of issues back then with counterfeit drugs, and they didn't know what to do with that. They didn't know that basically people were buying counterfeit drugs on the internet, eBay and all these websites back then. This was early 2000s. And they were having adverse reactions because some of them were real and some of them were counterfeit. And so, yeah, I got to learn a lot of things about a lot of different industries and work with executives to individuals. And it was a great way to learn how to sit in a room with a CEO and a C-suite executive at 21 and present data and I think it was a really good,
yeah,
a good place for me.
Being exposed to those environments at a young age, and you absorb that and you listen, and you just sort of going back to what you said before, you learn how to exist in a room with those sort of kind of people, because while you're in college, you're, going to class, hanging out with your friends, learning from a professor, and then you're tossed into this work environment where all of a sudden you're wow, this is the real world now. So your first internship was the summer before senior year of school.
Yes. And I was part of the advisory internship class, and I worked in South Beach, Miami for the summer.
Sick.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was pretty great. I have to say, I was very
that sounds
lucky.
great.
Wow.
I worked in South Beach on a anti-money laundering project for a bank, and it was super interesting. Lots of data. We built software tools for them, and so that's where I first kind of got into software, because I don't have a CS background. That's not not what I studied, and so it was the first time that I really got into understanding business requirements or understanding client requirements and using that to develop software solutions, kind of being that project manager level person, was through that. And then I did that for a couple of years, came back full time after I graduated, had some amazing mentors there, really incredible people who gave me a lot of opportunities and supported me in a really great way. I still talk to them, actually exchange emails with them. They've had a huge impact on my life, and I think back then believed in me when I didn't really believe in myself, and put me in positions where I could, be a leader and gave me the opportunity to do that, which was great. Like speak in front of a C-suite executive at 22 years old, and present data that I had worked on, which, I think that was pretty impactful.
If you look back on your, multitude of careers, aside from Humane, where do you think, and I probably know the answer to this, where do you think, sort of the most growth happened? Or
Humane.
have you just
Humane.
been, or has it just been this, for ongoing learning growth period for you?
It's funny. I told someone last night that like I have grown more in the past 4 years at Humane than I think. I anticipated. I knew that it was going to be the most challenging thing I ever did. I set out to do this because I knew Imran and it was like, this is the big thing. This is the thing that like is going to define the rest of our lives. Like we looked at each other and said like, okay, we're going to kick this off. We're going to do this, and because we knew it was going to be the biggest and most challenging thing, it was like a pretty emotional thing at the time. So I knew that this was going to be the most challenging thing, but I would say that like I probably grew the most at Apple, of course, because it was such like a important time in my life, like how old I was, and in that time frame, in your 20s to early 30s, you're kind of like understanding the world in a way that is more complicated. You're realizing like there's factors that you didn't know existed before that are there. Like you're kind of, it's like, when you're playing a video game and you're walking and the world is basically building in front of you, it's like that's what the feeling is. You're like, oh, okay. There's
Everything
like these
finally renders in.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, there are these layers that I didn't know were here. Like, all right, So I think I think I grew the most there, but I probably matured the most at Humane in terms of like, that's probably the.
And you also happened to join Apple at the most pivotal, critical time in the company's history.
Yes, I would say that.
Is pretty serendipitous.
Although it was probably before I joined that it was like the most pivotal moment when Steve came back.
Yeah.
And, I came like right at the end. They just shipped the iPhone like a year before, so it was.
But I would say even still, what do I know? I was 17 at the time when the iPhone came out.
Oh my God, you're making me so Oh my God, I'm so old.
I just have vivid memories. I have vivid memories of sort of these perspectives that the industry was taking on, like, what business does Apple have making a phone, and here we are, and Apple sold, I think it's like 1.5 billion iPhones. Mm-hmm. And there's John Elrickman always tweets about this stuff, like, oh, Nokia and BlackBerry, the big giants, who can take them down? And then Apple just, waltzes in and says, here's our take on this thing. So that's when I say like critical, pivotal moment, Apple became this like global dominant force in the years that you happened to be there, Bethany.
Well, someone said something to me recently where it was like, how do you actually do like really big and scary and crazy things? Like step one, believe you can. That's literally like step one. Can you get there? So I feel like at that moment with the iPhone too, it was the same thing. Steve was like, we can build something better, Like they were all using the phones of the time. If you ask Imran, he'll say like they all had the shitty phones and they were like, these suck. Like this is terrible. We could definitely build something better than this, and build something that you really want, believe that you really can do it. And you do have to kind of tune out the noise a little bit, which is really hard. We're all human and that's a challenge, but I think as long as you stay true to the, why are we doing this, and make sure that what you're building is something that you really want, and just keep working really hard, stay focused, and like we always say, keep your ego out of the conversation as much as you can. Ego is important, but sometimes it can send you in the wrong direction. So it's like just stay true and to that, and keep building, keep going.
Yeah. It sounds like, Bethany, you are like, in your decision-making process, right, you have like a technical background from the sense of like astrophysics and mathematics, but it seems like also you operate with sort of like gut intention, right? How do you, what is your decision making process? As like a human being, do you sort of like are analytical things? You just, sort of say, like, I say how I feel, and you say this to me all the time. You're like, Sam, you're so blunt and straightforward, but I'm like, I don't know how else to operate.
Like very gut driven, I think, is the way I
just sort of say how I feel.
I love that, and I love that about you. I mean, we know that. It's very pure. It's very intentional. I would say that for me, like, I'm very data driven. I like data. Someone asked me recently, like, where's my happy place? Like, I love being in a spreadsheet, okay? Like, I'm kind of like, if I'm sitting there, people used to make fun of me in the beginning of Humane because I had a wired mouse. And actually, guys, I've evolved. Okay,
nothing wrong with a wired mouse.
There's
I
nothing
prefer
wrong.
a wired mouse.
I for some reason, I don't know whether it's nostalgia from like my time as a consultant. I had a PC and a wired mouse, but like in the early days of Humane, when I was doing a lot. Obviously now we have an amazing team, and I'm very grateful and lucky that I'm not doing all those things anymore. But I used to be doing all the things, there weren't many of us. So imagine like, entire organizations of people. I was doing all of it, trying to figure it out and learn. And I would be at my desk with my wired mouse, my computer, and my coffee, and I would just be like, in the spreadsheets and doing all the things. And that's my happy place. I love data. I love when people provide data as a context to their decision making. It really helps me understand, like, how did you get here? But I appreciate also the gut perspective, and I think that's where Imran and I like really balance each other out. And so we have a lot of really interesting moments where, like, even just like buying a couch, like, let's use that as an example, where I can't look at something and know if it will fit in the room. I don't have like this spatial awareness. Like, I'm very clumsy. I have issues with 3D space. Like, that's just, my brain works in 2 dimensions. Like, that's really, it's just not it's not who I am. And so sometimes I'll look at something and I'll be like, that won't fit. And everyone's like, yes, it will. And I'll be like, nope, it doesn't fit. And he's like, would you like me to make you a diagram? And I'm like, yes. And he'll make a diagram and he'll draw it out, because that's how I process information. I process information in like numbers and, sketches. And for Imran, he can just look at something and be like, that's right, or that's wrong, or that's going to fit, or it's not going to fit, or this is the direction, or it's not the direction. And so we've learned to kind of like be patient with one another in that, and also like figure out how to translate into how the other processes the information. So sometimes he'll come to me with something and he'll say like, I've already like, here's what it looks like, you've done the math, here's how it fits, or whatever it is. So I think that that's our superpower, is our ability to kind of like understand our yin and yang.
You said before that your happy place is in spreadsheets. I kind of want to ask like a little bit of a sort of like a, psychological-ish kind of question. Where do you think happiness comes from? Does it come from within, or do you receive it from the, sort of outside?
So there was a study that was done, like one of the longest studies done on happiness, that I read when I first left Apple. And I was thinking a lot about like, what am I going to do next? What are we going to do next? Like, we just kind of were like taking time to talk to a lot of people and learn a lot of things and kind of expose ourselves to a lot of different areas. And I found this study about happiness that talked about how people who are truly present in the moment, meaning
us here right now.
Yes.
Exactly.
But it goes so far as to say, if you're so present that you're not even thinking about like what's for dinner, like what am I going to eat later, like what do I have to do next, like thinking in my head, how many minutes do I have, like not even ideating or dreaming or thinking about anything other than like Sam and I and Colin and I, like we're in a room and I'm talking and we're talking about this thing, actually recorded higher levels of happiness. The people who were able to like truly be present in the current moment and not even think about, something else. And that was pretty powerful for me because I'm terrible at that. And it's, you know, you guys know me, like I vibrate up here. I'm constantly like.
You're doing 15 things at once
yes,
always.
I'm processing like.
Which makes sense. You have so much going on.
Yes.
And you always say, I can multitask. You're like writing emails, texting.
It's so bad. No, it's so bad.
Oh, it's great.
And I'm like, I love to read and I'm a speed reader and I'll read a book while I'm watching TV and I'm like, I want a lot of input. Mm-hmm. I'm happy when there's a lot of inputs. I'm happy when I'm kind of like doing lots of things and there's lots of things coming in and I'm processing a lot of data. I love that. And so it's kind of goes against everything that feels really comfortable to me to be like, just make sure that you're like right here. And so I've been really working on that. And one of my favorite stories about Imran, like really helping me do that was like when really a long time ago, I was moving into an apartment. It was my third apartment that I was moving into, and him and I were. I was nervous about this apartment, and I didn't. This is before we lived together. And
it was in California.
Yes,
yeah.
And I was really nervous about it, and had a lot of anxiety about it. It was like a new space, and so I was like, you should come see it. Why don't you come see it? And so he's like, okay. So bring him over, and I'm walking around the apartment. It's empty. There's nothing in it. It's totally empty. And I'm walking him into each of the spaces. I'm like, this is the living room. I'm going to put a kitchen, typical Bethany.
You see it all. You got it all laid out.
Like, you can literally see it. And then this is where we're here, and then this, and then like, I'm thinking a gray carpet, and he's quiet, He's just like, he's following me.
Sounds so much like
he's just observing.
And he's just like processing, he's like listening. And then at 1 minute, he just looks at me and he goes, the first words out of his mouth, he goes, have you sat here yet? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, there's no furniture. What are you talking about? There's nothing here. What do you mean? And he's like, have you sat here? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no furniture. No, I haven't sit here. I'm getting all like kind of agitated.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't we sit? Why don't we just sit? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, let's just lay on the floor. So like we laid on the floor in this apartment. It was totally empty. It was dark. There was no lights. Literally hadn't even moved in yet. And we just laid on the floor and he's like, we're just going to be quiet. I was like, okay. And then laid there for like a couple seconds. And I was like, damn it. Like, he's right. Okay. And I was like, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, I just kind of have to like sit in this moment. And it was really like eye-opening for me at the time. I was like, okay, I need to like learn how to do that more. And like not only by myself, but also with other people. And I actually was talking to someone about this last night. Someone asked me at dinner, what does support look like to you?
Ooh,
which was such a good question.
That is a great question.
And I'm going to ask both of you after I answer.
Okay.
Oh.
This is a good question. So someone asked me, what does support look like? And I said, support looks like to me, Andy, who's our chief of staff, who's freaking phenomenal. I couldn't exist without her as my best friend and partner, and she's amazing. But support for me looks like sitting in a room and not talking and just existing in whatever emotions we are going through at the time, like her going through emotions or me going through emotions, not trying to fix it, and just saying to one another, like, it'll be okay, or like, it's okay to be sad, or it's okay to be mad. Like, I totally get you're mad, but like, or I totally get you're sad, but like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to be sad. Let's be sad for a minute. Or like, let's be mad for a minute. We're not going to try to solve it. We're just going to like sit in it together. Just sit in the emotions together has been something that I've like really appreciated over the past 4 years. And it made me realize how powerful just sitting with each other is, and like sitting with each other in those moments that are potentially challenging, and not trying to like solve it or fix it, but just like sitting with one another. And I feel like I've really been very grateful for like those moments over the past couple of years with her. So that's what support looks like to me. How about you, Sam? What does it look like to you?
I'm processing what you're saying because it's so true. It's tough. First of all, I think it's hard nowadays to just be present, like drive a sense of, and like take a moment to be like, okay, I'm here right now. like I'm letting my senses drive, sort of the things that I'm doing right now versus just thinking about dinner or thinking, oh no, look at the time. So that's thing number one. Support, it's interesting you say just like sitting with the feelings because I think my version of support is being able, and I mean, Colin, someone like you comes to mind, just being able to talk openly and freely and not be judged and sort of just get things off of your chest. It's sort of, and it's twofold. It's like, so the other person can sort of like hold some of that burden with you. And it also sort of invokes a sense of release and letting go where, I mean, Colin, you can probably speak to this, when we talk very openly about every facet of life. And to me, yeah, a good supporting partner, sort of infrastructure, whether it's your home, your work environment, the person you live with, whatever, is being able to talk while someone else listens, and I don't need a response. I just want to know that the things that I'm saying are being processed by another person. So that's what support looks like to me.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, based on what we said at the beginning of the conversation about you and like how you just say, you need to say what's on your mind and it comes out sometimes. You're like, this isn't fully thought through or processed, but I just have to say it and to move on. And
even our marketing meeting yesterday, I just feel like I was just like saying things that I felt needed the group needed to hear, or that I felt that the group needed to hear.
Yeah, and you support for you is having somebody who listens and doesn't judge or doesn't
like I'm not looking for a response.
Yes.
I don't need like a back and forth dialogue. Like these are the things that I feel like need to be heard right now in a sense.
I love that.
Thank you.
That helps me be better for you. So thank you for sharing that. How about you?
I think it's somewhere probably in between like what you guys are saying. I think all the experience that I've seen at Humane, everybody comes to any kind of conversation in this like gray area. We always exist in this gray area. It's never these extremes. It's never like a yes or a no. Nothing's ever like oh, this is right, this is wrong. It's like some combination of like this collective
dialogue
and mindset, and like that is, I mean, to both of your points as well. I mean, just being heard is great, and everyone here does that very well. But not living in these like extremes, because nothing is ever like a black or white, or it's never like 1 or 0 really. It's somewhere on that like spectrum in between, and it seems like everyone with experience here seems to recognize that, and there's always some sort of like compromising, like hodgepodge of everything that we talk about.
Yeah,
and that's where we end up landing on everything we talk
I think to your point, Colin, the open-mindedness of people that we work with, like we're all, we all have our own opinions and thoughts about things, and we all come to the table with very different perspectives, but it's great to have, operate in an environment where we can speak our minds, and it's not that someone's right or wrong. It's just like, here are my thoughts about things, Yeah, it's like that. I'm a person that I feel like I operate on extremes, like when you said before, like I'm always at the front of the line. What went to my brain is like, I've camped out for the iPhone a number of times, and like there's been a few times where I'm like the first person in line, and not exactly related to what you were saying, but I don't even know why I went down this path.
I will say really quick,
Sorry.
like one thing about you is that sometimes you do live on the extremes, but you're always open to listening and adjusting, which I think is really, like what you were saying before, at Humane, we talk about like great design comes from great dialogue, right? And great dialogue is what we need to focus on. Now, great dialogue requires that we all come to the table willing to have our mind changed, right? Like if I'm having a conversation with you and you're like,
so well said,
and you're like, this is my decision, and this is what I want, and
Yeah.
I'm not flexible. I'm inflexible, and I'm not changing my mind. And whatever you say can't change my mind. What I appreciate about you is that like you might come to the table with an extreme viewpoint, but you'll listen and adjust, and you'll say, no, you're right, or that's a good perspective. Like you're open, which I think is important. So I appreciate that. I feel like I didn't get the answer to your question though, for support, because I need to know, what does support look like for you?
I think it is that. I think it's
It
what
is
you
that.
just said,
Okay,
the
good.
open-mindedness. I think I need to be around people that are willing or like open to some
Yeah.
form of change, instead of like living in these extremes on,
Right.
you know, a yes or a no kind of thing, like, and being so stuck on that. If you're open to changing your opinion, it leads you down to like a better path
I think
every
this is
time.
why we work well together. There's definitely been environments where we are, you know, sort of faced with like, you know, very like yes or no sort of things, you know, but the way I think you and I, Colin, operate is like we sort of just go, you know, there's no right or wrong. We sort of just like, again, going back to this intuition and trusting your gut, but that's really like how I operate. I feel like it rings so true for the work that you and I do here, but then also like going back many, many, many years. Yeah, for those that don't know, Colin has been at Humane for 2 months. Colin and I met at the Amazon treasure truck when Amazon dropped the Nintendo Mini, the NES Mini. Patrick, who was Casey Neistat's assistant at the time, I shared a studio with him in New York. And I remember Patrick going like, oh, you're going to the treasure truck right now? I think my roommate Colin's going to be there. You guys should meet. I think you would get along. Sure, yeah. I like meeting new people. I like making new friends. Yeah, here we are, that one fateful afternoon in September of 2017.
Yeah,
Who knew?
crazy.
I love that.
Bethany, was there ever a point where, you know, you when starting Humane, like, are you able to have perspective now and be like, wow, there's 200 people that work at this company? It was just you and Imran at some point, you know? That is crazy to me.
I know. It's crazy to me too.
You're sitting there and be like, yeah, I know, it's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's
I'm
so
like,
crazy.
It's so bananas. And
Like, there is a whole company now.
Yeah, and I totally am still in awe of that. I remember, you know, I told the story, I think, about, you know, how Imran and I in 2018 had a moment where we, you know, looked at one another and had to have, you know, make the decision that we were going to do this, like that we were going to start this thing. And I was in our daughter's room, and I was sitting there, and she was at school, I think, and I was in there doing something, and, you know, Imran came in and he's like, hey, we need to talk about this. Like, we need to talk about, like, or, you know, and we were at kind of a moment where we had an idea. We knew what we were going to go build. We were ready to go. But, you know, we just hadn't made the decision. And he, you know, came in and he's like, we really got to talk about this. And I said, yeah. And I remember I looked at him and I said, listen, like, if we're going to do this, we have to recognize that this is going to be the rest of our lives. Like, this is not just, you know, next year. And, you know, this is about the rest of our lives. And
That's heavy.
And I said, and also, like, we have a lot to lose. Like, we have to know that going into it, you and I have to look at each other and look in each other's eyes and say, like, okay, we're both understanding what this is about. We both know how intense this is going to be. We both know what's at stake, you know, that we are going to invest everything. Like, we're going to put, not only were we self-funded and we were putting our own money in the beginning, but which is, you know, part of the process, but also just that, you know, everything that we knew, we were going to just invest 100%. Like, Imran and I are 100% people. Like, we're in all the way with people, with, like, everything. We're, like, totally committed. And so we just had this moment where I said, like, okay, like, are we looking at each other and saying, we're ready? Like, we're ready to do this. We're committed. It's going to be all in. We have everything to lose, and we're just going to do it. Like, we're going to just make it happen. And it was kind of this emotional moment. We both got, you know, pretty teary-eyed, and we were like, yeah, we're like looking at each other and we're saying yes, and we're going to do this. Like, we both understand what we're doing. And that was a really important moment, because it was literally that moment was the beginning of Humane. And then we called up Patrick a couple months later, and that was the beginning of
It's
the journey.
fascinating, Bethany, that you chose the word emotional to say, not challenging or scary, emotional.
Yeah.
Why?
I think that it was, I think that in some ways we knew that it was really going to be the rest of our lives. This is like the big thing that we were really ready to invest like all of ourselves in. This is a 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. 365 days a year. This is, and so I think it was like the gravity of the situation. That was pretty emotional, and I think we were excited too, and the truth is, like, it's been really hard. I mean, it's been 4 years of a lot of uncertainty and challenges, and times where we're like, is this like, are we gonna make it, or is this gonna work? Like, are we gonna be able to, get what we need to be successful? Is like, it hasn't been that since then. It's been, smooth sailing. And so I think that we also knew that, like, we're going to have to fight. Like, we're going to fight the whole time. And we're just going to be, working really hard and giving 100% of everything to it. And, so yeah, it was an awesome and emotional moment. So I look back on, like, the first day that Patrick, Imran, and I were that we had like a small co-working space. And the first day that we were sitting there, we would show up to work, I mean, every day into this co-working space, just the three of us, and there was nobody else there. It was just us sitting at one table, which, by the way, still exists. The table that we sat at together is in a conference room in 969. Wow. That we still use.
Yeah. I love that.
Wow.
And the best part is the table that the three of us used to sit at is used in one of the conference rooms at our headquarters. Then when we got our first office and we built, 10 desks, and we had no employees, but we like built the desks. We're like, people are gonna come. Like, we're gonna, and I remember going to bed the first night after we built the desks, being like, I really hope like people come, because we're like ready to go. And then the table that we used to sit and have lunch at, you guys know, in that office, when we were like 3 people, then 4 people, then 5 people, then 6 people, then 7 people, then 10 people. And then eventually we didn't fit at the table for lunch anymore. That lunch table is also in our headquarters. And it's always like such a great feeling when I sit at it. I'm like, we used to all sit around this table, it was,
there was, I think it was maybe Imran or you said this, it was something like the crew that went to CES this year was the size of the whole company, basically, the last time you guys went to CES.
Yeah, we were 13 people. Well, 13 people went to CES, I think, this year as part of our trip, and I think the company was 13 people in January 2020.
And now we're over 200.
Yeah, like 220 almost, yeah.
Which, in the grand scheme of things, is absolutely tiny.
I know.
When you think of literally any company, to think of like, yeah, there was a time where, a little company based in California called Apple, out of a garage, was, Steve and Steve, and Google and all of these other gigantic that are tens of thousands.
Yeah. Well, people ask, like, how do you do it? How do you do anything, right? It's like, how do you do anything? It's literally like one brick at a time. Yeah. Like someone's like, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. Like, that is literally
brick by brick.
I just feel like,
where did that come from?
I have no idea. That's how I feel. Like, one step at a time.
Yeah. I think that, though, ties in very well with the sense of presence thing, Bethany, right? Because it's like, you can be stressed or anxious with like, I have to do all these things, and how are we going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, all we can really do or control to some degree is what is present in front of us.
This moment right now. And Mark Benioff, like, was someone that Imran and I spoke to really early on when we were thinking about, building this thing. Mm-hmm. And we worked with him on our values, like trust, truth, and joy came out of conversations with him, which was really powerful. Like, he we were having conversations, and Imran and I just kept talking about these words being like really important to us, and these things being really, and he's like, those are your values. Like, you're literally like, both of you are saying these words over and over and over again. And I remember I asked him at the time, like, how do you actually do it? Like, how do you build a company based on values? Like, what, you know, and I'm like a list person. So it's like, give me the steps. Like, what is, all I need to know.
I need action items.
Like, what are the, just steps 1 through 10? Like, what do I have to check off every day? And I remember he just looked at me and he was like, well, like, you're going to do it by making sure every single conversation, every single meeting, every single decision, every single interaction, every single thing you do, that you think back on those values. And I remember I was like, eek, okay, that's really hard, okay? And at the moment I was like, wow, okay, it's, in some ways it's that simple, but in some ways it's that challenging, that it's like, yes, exactly what you're saying. Every single time you show up in a meeting, in a decision, in an interaction, you have to be thinking about them. And the truth is, we're not, like we said before, we're not perfect humans. It's not possible that you're going to ace the test every single time. That's okay. But as long as when you don't ace the test and you don't do a good job, that you go back and you say, okay, I'm validating against these values and I did a shitty job. I need to go back and fix that. And so he literally was like, that's how you do it. Like, okay.
Yeah,
all right, it's just a lot of hard work. All right.
Yeah, that willingness to learn. You said it earlier, like the growth mindset versus whatever the other thing. Fixed.
There's a great book called Mindset. If you haven't read it, it's a good one.
Bethany, random question. I think I asked you this last time. I think the last time, by the way, on the green couches was like back in November, all we're at Ready, which is crazy. It was before you got here.
I feel like I was a different human back then.
Wow.
Like, right? Like,
and we'll
how
look back
much
on this and be like, oh, you know, we were babies back then.
I know.
How many books would you say you've read in your life?
Oh my God.
I've asked my friend Tyler this, and I'm like, what, like over 100? He goes, Sam, like probably over 1,000, right? Like, how many books would you say you've read?
I don't know. I think it would I would say that the speed at which I'm reading now has slowed down a little bit because of everything else I'm processing most days.
You mean the how fast you finish a book? You could still read quickly, but you're not finishing books as often because you know you're running a company.
Yeah, like if I'm sitting on like Imran will laugh, like if I'm sitting on an airplane, like he'll time me and be like, you know, she'll finish this book before we land, you know, kind of thing. But I feel like I haven't had enough pockets of like totally dedicated time to read as much as I would like, but that's okay. I go through like these ebbs and flows, I feel like.
Over
and
1,000?
Everyone
Oh,
does,
I'm sure, yeah.
Cover to cover, over 1,000 books.
Probably, and most of them probably when I was little. Like my mom used to take me to Barnes and Noble, and I would just like stack of them, and I'd be like, just as fast as I could. I loved it. I loved the way they smelled. And my mom, she used to read. My parents used to read to me every night, which was like a big thing that we did. But she would always tell people that like as she was reading to me, I would just be like moving. I'd be like playing with everything I could. And she always would be like, Bethany, just sit still, you know? And I remember I was moving so much because it wasn't fast enough. I was like, I'm watching the page and I'm like, I'm reading the words faster than you're reading them. And it's like driving me crazy. I just want to like, you know, and my mom, we used to laugh about that so much because she'd be like, you would never stop moving. You were constantly just like playing with the lights things and moving around. Like that was
always in motion.
Always in motion.
Wow. Okay, Bethany, it is 10:06. You probably have to be somewhere. I want to just maybe open up for some questions here. I saw one before that is, you know, you've answered this 100 times. You answered it in saying Patrick. Someone asked, like, who was the first hire at Humane and why?
That was Patrick. Yeah.
Patrick Gates, our CTO.
CTO. And that was a pretty incredible moment. He came to visit us at our office, our little co-working space, and Imran had these beautiful printouts that he had made, these like big printout pages of images of what we were building, just maybe like a stack of them. Mm-hmm. And he came in and Patrick sat down and Imran just put them in front of him and was like, and let him like flip through them. And then it was just quiet for a minute. And then he just said, my wife's going to kill me. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, because I can't say no. Like I have to do this. I have to be a part of it, and we have to do this. And then we actually had a really good conversation about like what it meant to build the company and what it meant to build the team, and are we aligned, the three of us, on like what it was going to feel like and what it was going to be like and what our values were going to be. And I really appreciated that, because he was like, yes, the product is incredible and we have to build it and this is going to be wild, but also like, let's make sure the three of us agree on like what it means to build the company, because, you know, that's also a product, right? And if we're not aligned, then, you know, and I really appreciated, like, he went right there. As soon as he was like, that's amazing, yep, I'm part, he was like, let's talk about like, you know, what does it actually mean? And, you know, he has a family and 2 small kids, and it was like, at the time, we just wanted to talk about like, how is it going to be similar to our Apple experience? How is it going to be different? What are the things that are really important to us? And yeah, it was a pretty pivotal moment.
And what's epic is you, Imran, Patrick, got to define every facet of what Humane is.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's so epic. It's like, it's a reflection of the, you know, you and Imran, Patrick, you know, and now like me and Colin have all of us,
Yeah,
all
everyone.
200 of us.
Crazy.
It's there is not a day, Bethany, that goes by that I don't think to myself, this is just, all of this is so epic. Like that I GK, Ken, Lily, Bins, I can name you, you know, I'm like, these are my colleagues. These are my friends. You know, we're like a family now, you know?
And there's so much joy. Like I was leaving the office before I came to New York, and it was really crowded. The office was super crowded on Wednesday, which is always like, I love that energy. And I was walking from, you know, the 3rd floor down to the 2nd, down to the 3rd, and I went through the hardware lab, and there were like all these people just like in all these different places working on different things. And I just heard like a lot of great conversation, and then like good debates, and then people laughing, and I, you know, seeing everyone working on the product and like using it, and I was like, man, that was probably one of the moments where I like sat in it for a minute. I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, I'm really lucky, and I feel really grateful that I get to work with people that, you know, I just enjoy being around, you know, and I feel like I'm learning from every day.
It's so great to hear you have that ability to have that perspective, that you're not just like stuck in CEO land, you know, where you can sort of ground yourself and be like, whoa, this is dope, you know, this is like, you know, and you built this thing. There's some good questions here. What is the most difficult part of the startup process, and what do you do to help getting through that?
I would say that it's pretty lonely. Like, I think being a founder, you know, like in the past year, it was pretty, like, I was pretty acutely aware that, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, a lot of people are depending on you, you know, and a lot of people are, you know, there's a lot of responsibility, and
not from just like Humane employees, but investors,
just
partners, collaborators,
people who are excited about what we're building. I mean, it's like literally everyone.
Yeah.
So that, I think, I'm so grateful that I have Imran. I'm so grateful that I have Patrick. I feel I think we could never do it alone individually. Like, I think the fact that, like, there have been so many moments where the three of us have gotten on phone calls and video calls at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we'll just be like, you know, talking about something that's really challenging. And even in like the hardest conversations, that we'll like have, like, Imran and Patrick seem like total opposites, but they're actually like very similar. And what cracks me up is like, they'll be like, and then I was like, you know, this is what we should do. And Patrick's like, exactly, like, that's what I was thinking, you know, like, we're always on the same page. Like, the two of them always like are mind melded, and they talk about that, which is really incredible given that they're so different. So
yeah, they are pretty different.
Yeah,
as people.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that I have them. So I would say that that's the challenge. People ask me, you know, what is the thing that keeps me up at night? And I tell them that, like, literally my answer to that question has not changed in 4 years. Like, the thing that keeps me up at night, that I think about 24 hours a day, is the people, like the people of Humane. And I believe that, like, you know, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a founder, if you don't care or are not interested in like developing and growing and taking care of people, then you need to find a co-founder that does, because it is so much of the job and so much of the responsibility is like waking up every day and saying, okay, is everyone at Humane, do they have what they need to be successful? Are they set up to be successful? Are they doing okay? How can we support them better? And the truth is, like, imagine, 200 people, not everyone's going to be in a great place every day. It's actually impossible. And so there's always things where you're trying to figure out, like, how can I support the people on the team better? What can we do to take care of them? How can we make sure that they're supported to be the best version of who they are, to do the best work of their careers? Because ultimately, like, any technical problem we have, we can overcome. Like, any challenge is possible to overcome, as long as the people are supported in the right way to solve it, and they all come together. So that's the thing I think about all the time, which is why Dara's been, like, you guys interviewed Dara, like, she's been so amazing and really helpful and as a piece of that puzzle, like, really, how do we support our people and take care of them? Sahar and Jordan, who you should, I don't know if you interviewed Sahar.
Not yet.
We
like,
haven't had Sahar.
add Sahar to the list.
Okay.
She's incredible, our health and wellness lead. She's wonderful, really redefining what it means to take care of people at a company. She's just incredible. So
I donated blood.
Yeah.
During the workday, and that was like a thing that was organized by Humane to go and give blood. And I got my blood donor card, and then I just the other day got an email, you've been approved to donate blood at Stanford. And so apparently, and I think this is true, there's just, like, people need blood.
Yes.
Like, there's an actual shortage of people that are giving blood. I just wanted to sort of mention that, because there's been like, we had the farmers market. There's so many, and I said this to you before we got on the stream, like, we do so many cool things. And granted, like, I haven't worked at that many different companies. I worked at Engadget, which sort of like became The Verge with all those people. Then I went to a completely different organization, which was Mashable. But just like the things that Humane does as a company, just for the sake of doing them, taking care of its people, fostering the culture, is incredible, Bethany.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
But that all came from the fact that, like, from the beginning, Imran and I said, like, we were going to build a company in a different way. And a very key part of that Patrick, Imran, and I said was, like, we were going to look at employee health and wellness. And we realized that there was this trend happening where the younger generations were looking to their employers for different things. We grew up in a world, and our parents grew up in a world where, like, you go to work, you get a paycheck, you go home, you check in, you check out. Employees nowadays expect that their employers care about the things socially they care about. They expect that their employer is bringing them joy. They expect that their employer is taking care of and prioritizes and takes care of their mental health, their physical health, their wellness. It's just a different world that we're living in. And so I think that's been really, it's a challenge, like, to do that. But I think Sahar and Jordan, they've really taken that and turned it into something that I think even we, couldn't have anticipated. Like, to say, hey, we want to create a health and wellness program at Humane that's unlike anything that a startup has ever had. And, you guys know, every team sync, they get up and talk about all the things we're doing every month. They're providing so many amazing, access to information, access to services, and these benefits that happen all the time here and there, like the farmers market. That,
so great.
Just kind of, help take care of us holistically, which I feel like is important.
Yep. And I want to point out that the reason why this environment exists, Bethany, is because of you and Imran and Patrick, and the leadership qualities that the three of you exude. And again, I haven't worked in that many, like, I haven't had 10 different jobs, but, like, without a doubt in my mind, the three of you are the best leaders I've ever had the pleasure of working with. The level of compassion and your sort of, like, vulnerability when you get up there at the team syncs and we speak openly about things that we're doing. It's just like, I'm like, yes, I'm so glad we have you guys leading the charge. So I just wanted to say, you know.
And a lot of it, by the way, starts from the like early employee experience with Jose and the way that he built. I mean, he is the reason we have 220 people at Humane. He's incredible, and he cares so deeply about your experience and who you are, and sees you, and creates that support of you holistically from like the first conversation, all the way through, whether it works out at Humane or not, whether you end up at Humane or he helps you find your next thing that's not Humane. Like, and so I think it has to be that we have to have that full art, the arch of the entire thing. And I'm really grateful that we have him as well as part of that equation.
Yeah. The notion that a company is like this faceless organization, and there's like, it's just like, it's hard to sort of like actually understand that tangibly, but I see it here every single day. It's like, yeah, we have like a company Twitter account, sure, but the company is the people that work there. There's no like, it's easy to forget that a company is run by human beings.
Well, that's why we have everyone's photo on our page. Like I remember Imran early on was like, every single person is going to have their picture on the website, and we're going to tell their story, everyone's story. And I remember when we were like 10, 20, 30 people, that was fine. And then I was like, okay, well, we're going to do this all the way to 200, 300. He's like, yep. He's like, at Apple or other big companies, like you have no idea who's building these products. You don't know who they are. They actually like intentionally can't tell their story because, they, in some ways companies don't want you to know who the people are that are actually building it,
Yep.
And so he's like, nope, we're going to put everyone's face, like a beautiful shot.
And that's what attracted me so much too. I'm like, I got to go to the company website. The company hasn't announced anything yet, but they're putting front and center all of these wonderful people that are working here. And I'm like, wow, this person did all these things. Wow, Sarah Glick did this. Wow, Evan Hirsch did this. Wow, Nathan Lord did this.
And now we get to share everybody's story.
Yeah, exactly.
Every week.
Yup, that's
It's
right.
great. And Imran used to take every one of those headshots, back in the day. And it was actually one of my favorite moments was the headshot day where Imran and I would go on Saturdays and Sundays, and we would get to spend time with people, and everyone would make a playlist. Like you would be able to make a playlist and bring your outfits, and we would talk about, who you were and where you came from. And it was really like, those were some of my best moments.
It helps extract like the sort of the real self.
It was really special. Like we did that for like the first 150 people or 100 people. It was pretty cool.
Underrated. Going to the office on Sunday.
I know.
What we did last Sunday, because it's like everyone knows it's Sunday, but everyone knows that the work has to get done.
Yeah.
And the vibe, I don't know, personally.
Guess what? We get to do it this Sunday. I know. Can't wait.
I'm so stoked. Like it just, like I never really, I can't even think, I don't even know if like I could go to the Mashable office on the weekend, but like having like an office that you can go to do work on the weekends. And then also like knowing that there's some days on the weekend where, especially for us right now, given where we are, it's so great.
I mean, you have to like the people for that to be worth it. And so for me, I'm like, I want to see these people. I like to spend time with them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been really challenging. We're having to work really, really hard, but that, it makes it better when, you want to spend time with these people.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, 10:20, Bethany.
Thank you. This was so
You've
great.
probably missed a meeting.
It's okay. I enjoyed spending time with you
you.
both.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for being present with us.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. Just some housekeeping things. Join the Discord if you're not in the Discord already. We're doing a meetup this Tuesday in New York City.
I'll be there.
Details are in the Discord. That is discord.gg if you want to type it in the chat, Colin. You did. Discord.gg/humane. We are here in New York for work-related things. Like I said, there's the meetup. We did the stream with Bethany today. The streams will continue. Anything you want to add, Bethany?
No, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you,
great.
Bethany.
Thank you
all right, stream. Goodbye. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. Sayonara. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. And to the replay viewers, thank you for making it to the end of the stream. Goodbye. Thank you all for the kind words.